Well, Melissa, good to see you again.
Great to see you. Thank you.
You know, we first met at Springfield College as students, but on principle, not for a degree there. And
Right.
then I felt like I got to know you better in Jerusalem. So that's a great place to get to know Y people. So I suppose we could blame Mike Bussey for our friendship. Does that sound fair?
Yes, absolutely. Very thankful for Mike Bussey.
Yeah, well, and as I got to know you at Springfield and in Jerusalem, one of the things I appreciated about you is you seem very serious and focused, but also you have a huge heart and you love people. And when it comes to the YMCA, your level of skill and sense of mission, I've just admired from afar, but also up close. And so I just feel like it's a real honor to interview you and give you a chance to share some of your story with everyone here. So thanks for being there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very honored, very, very humbled.
So I got 3 questions for you. So I'll tell everyone up front the 3 general questions. Okay. One is not so much how you got started in the Y, but what do you love about the Y? And as we kind of heard about your career, I mean, those are kind of bullet points, but maybe just highlight a few of those things that give us an insight to your heart as a YMCA leader. And then I'll ask you a bit about your faith journey and kind of how you got started on your faith journey. And then bring those 2 together. You know, how does your faith, how does your Christian faith shape your Y work? So that's kind of where we're going to go, and you know, no surprise questions, no gotcha questions, but so first of all, we'll just start off with, why do you love the Y? You know, what is it about your Y career that just deepens your love for the Y movement, and why do you stay?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I can, I'm actually going to share my screen because I think it would be helpful, because my Y story actually begins at YMCA Blue Ridge. And so I want to share with y'all what YMCA Blue Ridge looks like for those of you that don't know. And so this is the view from one of our signature buildings on campus, Eureka Hall. And so this is the view that you have. And so when you think of the YMCA and you think about the amazing platform that it is, kind of what's not to love? What's not to love when you can see God's creation from this vantage point? And so kind of wanted to start there because, and I'll stop sharing, but that's really, Blue Ridge is the reason I fell in love with the YMCA. I fell in love with the people and with the work. And with the work was actually learning dignity of labor. So it was working in housekeeping and food service and maintenance, and, you know, finding fun in cleaning a ditch, and, you know, so it was just very different. It was very different. But then all of the people that come through Blue Ridge, over 30,000 people come through in a year. And so to meet all of the different types of people that we have in the world is just tremendous. And to see their hearts. And so it just got me. And I spent 4 summers working here and absolutely loved it. And so what it doesn't say, what Nancy didn't mention, is when I graduated college, I really kind of begged for a job. I really just was jumping up and down saying, hire me, hire me. I will work anywhere. I will do anything to come work at YMCA Blue Ridge, because I believed that Blue Ridge was on the cusp of greatness and had the opportunity to do amazing things.
That's amazing. So how would you describe that? What was some of the dynamics, that cusp of greatness? I think we'd all like to say our camps or our branches are there to attract people like you. So how would you say, what would you say was the marks of that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think just the opportunity to serve more people at a deeper level. And at the same time, Blue Ridge was moving into a programmatic space. And so we were starting to engage directly beyond providing just the platform, just the space, the rooms or the food or the meeting space, that we were actually building challenge courses and doing environmental education and deeper youth development work. And now family work. And so I think all of that was exciting. Yeah. And then the other thing is my mom told me when I was going through college, no matter what you do, make sure you love what you do and make sure you love who you work for and who you work with, because you're going to spend the majority of your time with them. And so it just seemed to align at Blue Ridge and
Yeah.
with why. Yeah.
So you're a leader now, directly shaping the culture. But when you think back to when you were younger and kind of a recipient, like you're younger, you're growing as a leader, is there a story that sticks out of a way that the YMCA, you know, the camp there shaped you as a leader because of that YMCA culture?
Yes. Yes. And that's a really, I don't know that there's any one instance that I could point to. But I can actually point to a couple to see when you look through the movement and you look at the Y leaders, and I would call them the giants, right? So getting to meet Mike Bussey and the way that he engages is just amazing, and his vision, right? And a Tim Joyce, right? And the ethos that he has. And you think of a Steve Tarver and a Jorge Perez and a Todd Tibbetts that we heard on the last one. When you think about all of those leaders in the YMCA, the Andy Calhouns of the world, they've all had I would say all had a piece in shaping who I am today, because Blue Ridge is our regional conference center. And our board is regional. And so having that opportunity to be outside of just Black Mountain, North Carolina, but to really look at the Southeast and then the country has just been amazing. Yeah. And just picking up little bits from all of them. Yeah.
Good. That's good. Well, thanks for sharing that. So just to switch gears a little bit then, so a bit about your faith journey. So when you and I talked earlier, you had the comment you kind of grown up in the church. So what did that look like for you? Kind of how did your faith journey get started, and what's that look like today?
Yeah. So, the journey was always in church growing up, right? So that's where you were every Sunday. So you had to go to church, you had to go to Sunday school. And I think the pivotal time is really what happens in college, and then what happens after college. And so to me, that's where it really landed on me, and not my mom, right? Not your family forcing you to go. And so that's when my faith journey, I would say, really strengthened. And then once you start a family, right, then you know that what's the legacy that you want to instill in your children. And also knowing that it's a journey. I think, when you and I talked, and I can see where God has walked with me in my life when I look back, right? Whether it's walking through marriage, or even providing during the pandemic, right? To see how God really spoke into our lives. Because we went to Israel and Palestine in February of 2020, and I can really just see how God loved on me and filled my heart and filled me to then walk through and lead YMCA Blue Ridge through the pandemic. And so I think it's just been incredible. I'm listening to the book right now, Having a Mary's Heart and a Martha's World, right? And it's focused on how do you create that consistency in your life, right? And be creative, and then being able to have those conversations. And I think that at times, I will be very honest and tell you, there's times when I struggle with the consistency. And so how do I do that? And for me, one of the ways in my adult life has been through Bible study fellowship. And so we're studying the book of Matthew, right? And that it's just been amazing to go through, and then to have small group time with women. And so I think my journey's been, it's been steadfast, but it's looked a little different depending on where I am in my life.
No, that's really good. Well, as leaders, we have a lot of responsibilities. We wake up, there's plenty to do. We go to bed, there's still plenty to do. And so I know sometimes we get caught in the trap of, well, I don't have time to be in God's word, or I don't have time to pray, or I don't have time to grow spiritually. And yet at the same time, maybe the maturity is when you realize I can't not do it in order to serve at a certain level. How do you kind of work that in? You referenced that book, and that kind of gets at that perspective. So for you, how have you been able to, not perfectly, but how have you been able to shift that mindset from, I got to make time to do that because it's the separate thing, versus I got to do it in order to love, in order to serve the way I want?
I schedule it. So it is, it is now, it's blocked out, because I'm calendar driven, right? I'm a little bit scheduled driven. And so it's on my calendar, it's on my schedule, and I have an appointment to get to, I have time. And so that has been tremendous for me. And Janelle, you asked that question of that Mary's, it's really Mary's heart that she put away the busyness of life to spend time with God.
Yeah.
Right. And I think remembering to carve that out and not get so caught up in checking things off of the to-do list, but really spending the time with God to discern, which is another thing that he taught me during the pandemic, right? We read the book Canoeing the Mountains together and kind of getting up in the balcony. And when you live on 1,200 acres of a conference center, you have, 8 miles of trails, you can find time to step out and get in the balcony. And I really learned to pause and to pray, and then to have peace about some tough decisions.
Well, I like that very practical schedule. I mean, I think we all went kind of like, duh, yeah. Obviously, but it's got to be there, doesn't it?
It does, and it's hard because because it's hard to then have a stumbling block of missing one, and then not letting it have the ripple effect of continuing to miss, which can get me at times of, oh, well, it'll be okay, I'll catch back up, but making sure that I do stick to it.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Is your faith an extension of your why work? How does it get integrated? How do you see Christian principles getting kind of put into practice through what you do at UY?
Yeah, so at YMCA Blue Ridge, we're pretty blessed. I mean, we've got the majestic mountains. I would say that we partner with over 600 organizations a year, right? And the opportunity to be who we are, right, when they're on our campus, and to love and serve all with grace. And I think that's how I show up, and that I believe that's how our staff shows up, and that we don't apologize for who we are. And I say that because, for instance, one of the beautiful things I think of Blue Ridge is that we will serve the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and we will serve the YMCA, of course, and we'll serve family reunions, or botanical medicines from the earth, or Light of the Path Buddhist retreat, right? I mean, there's a huge spectrum, vastly different groups, but we serve all the same. And also with that is, we have a cross in our amphitheater and in our chapel. We have the Christian flag out front. And we have one in Eureka Lobby, and we don't apologize for them. We don't cover them, right? If a group has asked, no, this is who we are. We're going to respect who you are. And so come enjoy yourselves. And it's worked well. I mean, that's my personal belief, and that's the belief of the staff that serve here. Mm-hmm. And that meets people so well, because what they see is, I would say, they see the shine. They see the heart of Christ, right? The work of the Holy Spirit, when they're on our campus.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, so you have a rich legacy, right? I mean, where you get to work is like an icon of what it means to be a YMCA, and life change and transformation. And it has a really specific Christian history, but the world's gotten a lot more complicated and a lot more diverse. So for you, how do you kind of channel both your own personal Christian legacy and history, but that of the YMCA, and how is that an asset to a more diverse communities and world that comes to you? Like, how do you help explain that to someone that thinks maybe you should keep it separate? Like for you, how do you, shared a few examples, but like it can get more complicated. So for you, how do you keep explaining to people how that shapes?
Yeah. So, it can get complicated, but I think that, but it can also be very simple we were all called to serve, right? There's dignity in labor, and we're all called to serve others. And so, I think we try to keep it very simple here. And we don't really have a lot of pushback on it, even from our non-Christian groups. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but you have staff from all over the world, right? And so we
have a global staff.
and they work there all summer. And, you know, I used to work on a camp staff, and you bond really tight with people as camp staff, and
Right.
even different kinds of Christians. So it's not even like
Yeah.
it's just Christians or non-Christians. I mean, you have a wide diversity of people of faith. And so what's it like, I guess, your culture there? What are some of the things you emphasize as a leader that really helps? If they're a Christian, they get to be a Christian at camp. If they're not a Christian, I mean, they get to be a non-Christian at camp, but they're called to serve. But what's the culture you try and do so that they get to shine as they really are?
Yeah, I would say an inclusive, right? And so I think when you hire a global staff that can represent 24 countries, you know, and you have someone from Russia and Ukraine that get to learn about each other, or China or Taiwan or Japan, Bulgaria, right? Turkey, all Chile, all the different countries, Colombia, that come in, they start to understand that we're all humans, right? And to move beyond the stereotypes, right? And really get to know the heart of the other person. And so I would say it's a very engaging and open culture that we have here on our staff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of Y leaders out there that, you know, they want to see their Y not just survive this pandemic, but really thrive. And that means kind of going deeper in the mission and our values. And if you're a person of faith, really drawing on your faith. So for you, what does it look like to go deeper, and what's coming up next, you know, with whatever 2022 and 2023 hold for you? What does it look like for the mission to go deeper at your YMCA?
Yeah. So for us, I want to highlight like three bright spots for Blue Ridge during the pandemic. Because, you know, when you're a place that gathers people and you can't gather large groups of people, it was hard. I didn't know what week of summer it was because I didn't have my usual groups that I knew for 29 years. I was like, what's going on? But I think what Blue Ridge learned during the pandemic was serving people is the heart of our work, right? And I would say that's the heart of the YMCA work, is serving people. And we did that by converting one building to an isolation and quarantine site. And our staff fixed the meals, they did the transportation, they did the daily check-ins. We staffed that building of 40 rooms, right? We prepared individual meals, as many YMCAs did. You know, we did that with a local nonprofit as well. And then the other was converted a building for school, right? And so we had kindergarten through 5th grade here. And again, it showed us that as a conference center, we could pivot quickly, and we could serve where people needed us to be. And to me, that's the beauty of the YMCA, is not falling in love with the traditional vehicle, but being able to pivot and serve others in what's necessary at the time. For us, as we look ahead, I believe we're a part of the healing, and we do too at Blue Ridge. We believe that we're a part of the healing that's coming out of the pandemic. People, we weren't meant to live in isolation, right? We were meant to live in connection with others. And so for us, we're eager to reconvene groups of people so that they can have connection. We're keenly watching mental health, social and emotional learning and awareness. We're also doubling down on our youth work, right? So we want to strengthen the families. We know that if we can strengthen the family, we can strengthen the child. And so how are we doing that? And we have our efforts focused on that as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, just to kind of wrap up our time together, I mean, if you were going to give an encouraging word to the YMCA leaders that are on this call, we've got people from the East Coast and the West Coast and up as far north as Minnesota and all the way down south to Texas. So we got a little bit of everybody on here. I mean, what would you want to say is, Melissa, you know, in your YMCA leadership and in your faith, what would you want to say to encourage leaders that are on this call?
You're doing great work, right? We just have to pause, and we have to remember to celebrate the amazing work that the YMCA does day in and day out. And I don't think that we celebrate enough. And so take the time to pause and to write down the celebrations and enter. And I would say also, I hope to enter all conversations with a grateful heart.
That is so good. Well, thank you, Melissa. If people wanted to come and visit you, how do they do that? They just go to your website and email you. I mean, if people want to
email me,
just
I would love it. Come visit. Come on.
right.
Would absolutely love it. Many
You heard that, everyone.
opportunities.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
All right. Nancy, back to you.